Welcome to the Business as Mission podcast, dedicated to those who long to see God glorified in business and the nations reached for Christ. Your host is Mike Bayer, longtime BAM leader and founder of Third Path Initiative, an online education resource for starting and growing BAM businesses around the world.
So I am here with my, I can't say we're old friend. We've known each other for a few years, but we feel like old friends when we're together. Joel Ballew, who his family a few years ago moved to Barranquilla, Colombia, and in the process of starting up a co-laboring, co-working space. They're so close, and I'm going to ask Joel to give us the update. But first of all, welcome, Joel. Glad to see you again, man.
No, it's awesome. I got excited when you invited me back. I mean, I did something right the first time.
and you came to my house, and I still invited you back. So
yeah, that's even better. That's true.
Exactly. No, so Joel and I, it was funny. We had not known each other. You and I met each other through a mutual friend, and we, hit it off immediately. It was, same heart, same Lord, all the stuff that we all say we believe in, and we really experience it together. And it's just great to see your face. And I want you to, as I mentioned earlier, if you would just kind of give the audience a little bit of the background story. Those of you who have not heard the episode where Joel shared how he got to Colombia and what's going on, I'll put it in the show notes so you can go back and look it up. Great interview, great conversation. But just for the sake of those who, give them a little teaser. And then we're going to come into sort of the last year, because you've got a lot of wisdom and I won't say painful experience, but it's how I learn to share with people. So Joel, give us a little background, you, your family, how you got there, what you're doing, and then we'll jump into the saga.
Yeah, no, that's good to stop. That's a true statement. So my story's easy. I'm a fourth generation entrepreneur. Kind of recapping who I am. Fourth generation. So all of great grandfather, father, all created and exited Fortune 2000 businesses. So really cool storylines, that really kind of a cool DNA. I had a business at an employee benefits HR consulting firm with offices on the East and West Coast. Really exciting. My family and I have three daughters who are all, I'm 6'6". My three daughters are all very tall. My wife's tall. And I decided, to come to Barranquilla, God really led us to in a really cool way, which you go back and hear that episode. I think I tell that story a decent bit, but we ended up in Barranquilla after a year in Costa Rica studying Spanish. But my story was, I'm going to be a missionary. I'm going to Barranquilla to be a missionary. I renounced business, sold my dream home and my business the same day, literally the same day.
Wow, man.
A week later, we went to Costa Rica. It was crazy. And as we got to language school, I realized this is not, God has something bigger for me. I didn't even know what BAM was at that point, right? At that point, that was 7 years ago. BAM was still a no-namer. Really, it's really grown lately. But so I was like, okay, I'm going to do this thing, business and mission at the same time. And that was a unique challenge. But one of the most fun experiences I've ever had in my entire life. So we're currently in Barranquilla. Barranquilla is a city of 1.8 million people. It's hotter than sin on a Friday. It's bad. I'm sitting here sweating as I speak.
I can testify to that. As Joel knows, I was in Colombia on a speaking tour last year, and it's hot and muggy, and nobody has air conditioning, and the windows open but no screens. So and by the way, I loved it, and I'm going back this summer. I'm looking forward to seeing you there. I love it, but when you say hot, it just brings back these memories of laying in bed with the window open, no sheet, no blanket, not even letting my fingers touch.
Yeah. So just praying to God the wind comes. No, it's funny. We have a racket. Side note, we have tennis rackets that are electricity. They have them in the States, but they sell them here on the street corner. And literally, we have 7 or 8 of them in different rooms, stationed throughout the rooms. So when mosquitoes come, we just start, whacking every mosquito we can get. It shocks them, kills them, and then we move on.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So we're celebrating 6 years in Barranquilla. Really exciting time. I never thought I'd get to 6 years, really honestly, in developing what we're doing. And with the way you mentioned, the co-working space and a model where we do some really unique things from a ministry perspective. But yeah, we love where we are. Our kids have hit a great stride. really excited about life here. Frankly, this is home now. It's a weird thing to say. My parents don't like hearing that, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I turned 43 here. My parents still get frustrated with that statement. That's okay. That's fair for them. They love us well. Their grandkids, their only grandkids are, a couple thousand miles away. So,
wow. Yeah, that's tough. As a grandparent, that's tough.
Yeah, I get it. So, to kind of fill you in a little bit of the story. So, the last year it's been fun. And I say that, in air quotes.
Let me throw this to you, because I was thinking about this in preparation for our conversation. And you tell me, hey, we're not open yet, and it's been quite a while. And admittedly, we both knew it was going to take longer than the typical, Western American, North American experience. And I was, when I heard you wrote, you said, hey, we're not open yet. I'm like, wow. And so that's when I said, I got to talk with you, really listen to you about, and you're going there. I just want to sort of put a little bit of a preamble ramble on there that says, this has been on my mind for this whole conversation. It's like, all right, so typical American, hard charger, entrepreneur at heart, you love the Lord, He's guided you exactly where you're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And the typical assumption in our magical world of Christian thinking is, and everything worked out and we lived happily ever after. Your story is quite different. So with that as the preamble ramble, now pick it up and tell us, not why you're not open yet. It's just, that sounds so accusatory, but just what has this year been like? And as I mentioned earlier, we'll come back to it, but what are the critical spiritual lessons, the walk with Jesus lessons that you learned that I need to learn and our listeners need to hear as well? So, all right, you, Joel.
Yeah, man, I think I could go so many different directions with that, but your preamble was literally 100% where I'm at, right? It took a long time and it was hard. And I think the reality is it's multifaceted. Probably the thing I've learned the most, and I think for anybody who listens to this conversation, who wants to do BAM or is beginning the process of BAM, it can learn that I get to share a lot now because I'm in it, is you better be really stubborn. and not only do you better be really stubborn. What's that?
Is that a Christian virtue, being stubborn?
It is now.
Yeah, it is now. Absolutely. The stubbornness of the saints. That's what Calvin meant when he talked about perseverance. But
it's the reality that we come into these situations with our American lens, right? I did. I came down here thinking, you know what? It can't be much worse. We're literally the phrases I kept using, right? Oh, it's got to be very similar. And the more I got into it, the more I realized I was completely wrong. And the more I banged my head against the door, the wall, whatever you want to call it, the more it got frustrating. It got more difficult. So what I realized is if you're not really stubborn, you're going to struggle. And really, I say it's Christian stubbornness, is what I've said a bunch of times. Perseverance, I love that. Again, that's the right way to say it. But the reality, Mike, was you've got to be able to humbly go, Lord, I am completely out of control. I am useless in this situation. But I'm going to fight tooth and nail for every inch I get, because at the end of the day, I know I'm doing what you're calling me to do, right? And that's why I say it goes in so many facets, because then it starts talking about calling and some other things.
But that sounds so biblical, to be able to say, Lord, I have no control. I have no power here. I'm not going to stop fighting. I love how you said that, right? I'm going to fight tooth and nail, the old Nehemiah sword and trowel. Right. I'm in the battle, but I can't do anything. I love the way you said that, because that's where really I think where we should be. But anyway, go ahead. I'm gonna try not to interrupt you the whole time. But
I love it. Please, I love it. It's the back and forth. I love it. No, really, and that's the key point, right? I go back and I go, okay, we're in this place of utter dependency, right? That I love to use. And at the end of the day, what you said is a true statement. Most of us who do this are hard charging, go-getters, hunters, not gatherers. And so inevitably, through this, I learned a massive spiritual lesson that I am completely out of control. And what we do in our traditional mindset as Americans is we go, okay, we're going to grab the bull by the horns, we're going to run, we're going to take it, we're going to control it, we're going to dominate. While the systems at least in Colombia, that has completely put me on my backside. It's not going to happen. It's just not. And that's okay. Because at the end of the day, what I learned, my wife and I just had this conversation, because I've been through it the last few months. I think what's been great is my spiritual awareness and my spiritual connection to where God has me, where God's taking me, is it the highest it's ever been. I never would have been that way sitting in Atlanta, Georgia, where I'm from. So that's been the coolest thing out of this deal. Sure. Do I have a ton of anxiety and stuff that comes from it? Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's, again, we're back to the magical thinking that even when God's at work, we're never going to be anxious. Well, yeah. So I have to ask you, Joel, did you consider giving up? Even in the midst of being stubborn and fighting, were there moments when you thought, I'm not going to do this?
The closest I got, Mike, and I know I never got there, to answer your question easily. So if you want to cut off now, you can. But the reality is I got close. The closest I ever got was twice. And it was, I guarantee life is a lot easier in the U.S. Or I could do this so much easier in the U.S. Or, the grass is greener on the other side of the fence, a version of that. That's the closest I ever got. But the reality is, what it immediately brought me back to it? The Lord put me here for a very specific purpose. I just run from that. I'm in disobedience. So it's like this reality to me. And it was like, and that scared me to death. And I immediately, got off that train real quick, that bandwagon. So yeah, it put me in a much better place. But yeah, every day I wake up and it's like, I guarantee there's somebody better that can do this than me. I guarantee there's some Harvard trained, School of Wharton guy that could come down here and kill it and knock it out of the park and say the right words. But that's not who God put in this role, right? So yeah, I'm going to continue to hard charge as much as I possibly can. But there are days where hard charging turns into hard sitting. and waiting.
Yeah, I mean, think about the impatience that comes with being an entrepreneur. It's in your DNA thick, 4 generations. And I do believe, by the way, that being an entrepreneur is somewhat genetic. I don't think it's entirely genetic, but I do believe there's a certain genetic aspect to it. But you're born with an impatience. You're born with I can't do this. I can climb this wall. I can scale this mountain. And then here you are with all of that in you and years of experience and successful experience, and you're hitting something that you can't handle. I know a lot of guys that would have cashed it in at that point, and you didn't. So thank God for that, number one.
Amen.
And that encourages me for what's around the corner. It's like I have a song I heard years ago when I was a brand new pastor that's a long time ago, both brand new and being a pastor. But it was an old song that used to come on the radio, and every time I'd hear it, it'd be like, this is my theme song. It says, he didn't bring you this far to leave you. He didn't teach you to swim to let you drown. And, I was like, okay, Lord, you didn't put me through all this to dump me at the end. You brought me through all this for something really cool on the other side. Yeah. And to me, that's hope. That's what the definition of hope is that I don't know what it's going to look like, but I know you've got it, and I know that it's going to be good, an expected end, as Jeremiah writes. So,
and Mike, that's what's I think I admit it all the time. I struggle with, because you're in the grind every day, right? And you inevitably go, because you're so focused on, at least from my perspective or my storyline, is I'm so focused on the positives and the negatives of the day, right? Live and die on the hills and the canyons of the day. That I inevitably, at the end of the day, go, wait a minute, I got to go back to that throughout the day. I have to, exactly what you just said, I have to be in his presence at all times, or this is going to be a tough road, and I will quit. It's I don't call anybody to the carpet, but I've learned that the hard way. If you don't stick with him, if the Holy Spirit's not there, and you're not acknowledging the presence of God at every moment of every minute, you're going to be struggling because crazy stuff's going to happen, and your business is going to be threatened. I was telling you earlier, we get probably an extortion once a month or attempted extortion once a month. That happens. Yeah. Now, it's okay. I'm used to it now at this point. It bothers my employees more than it bothers me at this point. I don't even bat an eye. And matter of fact, they're great conversations to have with people. You want to talk about awkward moments for them. And when I shared with them, I'm a missionary as well. And they're like, wait a minute, what? But it's that reality of if I let that situation envelop me, darkness comes, and then all of a sudden it gets really, anxiety and all those things come in. And what I've just turned to is I've got to rely 100% on it. And that's been really cool. And now, I do. I believe what you said. The next step is going to be when we open these doors, I think some really cool things are going to happen. And we're already starting to see that. So that's been really exciting.
So, Joel, give us just a few specifics of things you've run into, because again, there are many of the BAMers around the world have this similar story, but the folks who are looking in going, could this be for me? They don't know. And I know we're not trying to discourage anybody, but we are trying to forewarn that, guys, when you go to, like we did in Kyrgyzstan, or you are in Colombia and others in different places, and this is not a pro-American, anti-other country attitude. It's just different. It's not home. It's not wrong. It's just not home. But what are some of the specific things you ran into that you just spot? A friend of mine and I, we call them head-shaking moments. You just had to shake your head going, you got to be kidding, Lord. Are you serious?
I have those too frequently. No, I think a lot of it turns into, because a lot of cultures outside of America are very much saving face, right? I think that's probably, and that leads to just a whole plethora of unique experiences. We're told one thing because they want to make us comfortable, or they want to say it's going to be okay. But in reality, when you drill down and push comes to shove and you have to make a decision, for instance, we have air conditioning that we're going to commercial air conditioning. Well, renting air conditioning here is the right thing to do because, again, we're on the coast. Anything metal is going to get destroyed in 2 to 3 years. So pouring $50,000 into air conditioning would be the dumbest thing on the planet, because we're going to have to replace it in 3 years instead of, in the States, you could last 10 to 15 years with those units. Well, we're told millions of times by the same or different groups that, no, it's fine. You're going to be fine. You need to rent. You'll be perfectly capable. It's going to be no problem at all. Next thing you know, we start purchasing the equipment or for renting. And no, you can't do that because you're a startup. Well, everybody knew we were a startup when we started this process, but nobody wants to say no. And that's South America in general. Latin America, if you want to lump it all in, that's a generalization, but it's true. Yeah. And what I've heard from friends that are in BAM, it's the same thing. So I think you can't do your homework on that. You have to trust people's word, and that's okay. But I think the other part of that is the reality is just the way systems work and the way that, some people, remember, we're not here in Colombia making the average wage, the salary, the minimum normal average salary is about $280 a month. That's not a lot of money even here. Yeah. So to say, I get it when people come up and say, hey, we need, they open the palm and looking for something, because there's a reason for that. It's not because most of the time they're desperate at that point. So I don't get angry at those situations anymore. But that's part of those things that I always tell people, when you get into BAM, you got to realize this is not America. You really have to take off any presuppositions you have and it's more strap in for the ride. And you got to surround yourself with really smart local people. And if you don't know them, you pay them really well, right? Yeah. We have the largest law firm in the country, Mike. There's a reason I pay them a lot of money a month. They protect me at every corner of every moment of every situation because it's needed. It's huge. So I would say that's a big deal. That's a huge.
Yeah. And I love it's a great insight, because we're really talking culture. Then it's not that people are less honest or more honest in Colombia versus the U.S. It's not true. People are people. Yep. And I don't believe that, my experiences around the world in South America, Central America, I've not met anybody there that's less honest than the average American or more honest than the average American. So it's not a national political statement at all, but it is you're talking culture. Yep. And to live in a culture and work in a culture as you are, where people do not want to tell you no, they want to tell you yes. And a lot of that comes, my experience, you speak to this too, but they want to please you. They want to make you happy. They're not trying to deceive you. Mm-hmm. And so we're not, as a Westerner, as American in particular, I'm just not used to that. I'm used to people saying, not no, but heck no. And a lot stronger than that.
Yeah, so, exactly right.
How many times, Joel, have you just had to go and just seek the Lord for grace to not get angry and just say, I want to, you're 6'6", and I know that because I've stood next to you. I'm about 5'6", so I look like Joel's bald-headed little boy with a gray goatee. But I mean, you kind of a towering figure, and so I'm sure that you could be intimidating if you so chose, but you don't. How do you deal with that?
No, that's the hardest thing I do, personally speaking, right? I think I command a presence, not because I'm special, not because it's the way I model my grandfather. My grandfather was how he walked in a room, and he demanded, it was Mr. Spiegel, and he demanded that, and he didn't play around with that. And I think I got a lot of those genes. My dad, probably one of the most humble guys, walks in the room, loves everybody so well. Absolutely one of the most loving people I know. I try to model that, but I don't. So my inevitability is what I have to do is do it through words, right? I have to love people and be like, I'm so sorry, I'm about to say something that may come across as a little bit aggressive, but it's not meant to be that way. So please don't take it that way. But really, when I come home, my prayers before I go to bed every night now, right? Sound like my kids, but my nighttime prayer, my bedtime prayer is, Lord, I am so sorry because I know I came across to somebody today as aggressive, and I know I'm frustrated, or I was frustrated. Please continue to work on me in that aspect, right? Because I do. I mean, driving here is frustrating. So not because it's not. I'm still an American.
Yeah.
But what I've learned is the more relationships I build here, and the more loving on people we do, the better it's been. One thing that I've done really well, I've gotten really good at, is realizing that here it's very dictatorial in terms of how they manage employees from the top down. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. It works for them really well. It does not work for me really well. So what we've become is very relational in our approach to both employees and providers and vendors. And that, Mike, it's been the coolest thing on the planet because people don't know how to react. So it immediately disarms everything. So I can't get frustrated with people because I'm already thinking relationship first.
Yeah.
If I treat somebody very transactionally, it immediately, I'm always frustrated. I'm always angry. I'm mad. You're right. I do want to punch somebody. But reality-wise is, I'm a missionary. So everybody knows that because I have a YouTube channel that shows that. People look me up. All my employees did as I was hiring them. They all told me the story. They were smart. But the reality is, and it immediately disarms all conversations. When I go into like, hey, I want to get to know you. The air conditioning lady I just had, cool company, just sat down with them. It was like, it was 2 hours. It was supposed to be 30 minutes. And we just talked about life. And then we went to what it was going to be like for us to pay $60,000 for them to come in and install air conditioning. I'm like, I can't do that. Really, I love you. I love what your company stands for. But here's who we are. And if we do that, we can't pay our employees to keep the lights on. So what are we going to do? And immediately it just became a different conversation. So the context was it was a great moment for me. And we still talk to this moment. We're not going to hire them. But it's been fun. That's how I disarm the anger. Because, right, living in a foreign concept for those people who want to do BAM, you're already dealing with the stresses of day-to-day life. That's not going to change, right? You're not going to be able to get the peanut butter you like. You're not going to get cold. We don't have a hot water heater in our house. It would be the stupidest thing because it's 90 degrees year-round. It's cold water. It's still not fun taking a cold shower every day.
Yeah.
My car, when I go to the car repair shop, the guys try to take advantage of me. People try to take advantage of it. That stuff happens because we're in a cultural environment. It's okay. So you're already in those stresses. The more you can eliminate stress on the business side of things, which is impossible, but you can eliminate some, creates an opportunity, A, to create ministry opportunities, B, just to have a stress-free environment or less stressful environment. That's fun.
We'll be right back after a short break.
During this quick break, I want to invite you to check out the free Business as Missions courses on thirdpathinitiative.com. Topics include Introduction to Business as Mission, Ethical Capitalism, and Biblical Wealth Creation. These and other topics are available without charge, and there are also premium courses available.
The consistent lesson that it seems like every BAMmer I talk to around the world, international, expat, national, indigenous, doesn't seem to matter, very quickly they bring up something like that. I'm totally dependent. I'm totally dependent on God for this, that, whatever. And so, I'm not suggesting that we have to go do BAM to learn that. I'm actually suggesting that is the fundamental lesson we all need to learn. And Jesus was very clear about that, right? John 15, apart from me, you can do a few things. So I think, right? No, he says nothing. And that's the lesson of living. You're getting a master's degree in it, or maybe a PhD in it. How about the family, Joel? So how have you're dealing with some of the business frustrations, things like, getting told at the last minute, no, we can't sell this to you. I mean, we can't rent it to you. You have to buy it. That's tough. That's super tough. How about your wife and your 3 daughters? And, you know, because they're seeing this in you. It's a new world for them, new schools. I mean, you know, what's going on with them in this time of preparation?
Yeah, I think it's been interesting, Mike. For me, I'm, you know, I have great days and I have bad days. They see it. And so 3 daughters are very much more attuned to that than 3 boys would be. So they've probably become, I think because of this storyline over the last several years, have become some of the most loving kids I've ever seen, right? We interact with a lot of kids because we do a lot of ministry with kids. And what we're seeing is they're very mature for their age. I don't think it's because of our great parenting, frankly. I'm very honest about that. I think it's because...
Well, I think your wife had something to do with it.
Yeah, I was just about to say, my wife is amazing. She is by far heads and shoulders above me in terms of just a million different aspects of what who we are. But they've really just, I think they've become spiritually attuned to seeing Dad go through this. Their spiritual walks at 16, 14, and 12 it's amazing. Yeah, it gives me goosebumps as I say it. It's out of this world. They play competitive volleyball, very competitive volleyball. They're involved in the symphony orchestra of our city with the foundation that we helped create. And most of the kids they interact with on a day-to-day basis, probably 85% of them don't know Jesus. And they stand very firm in their faith. And I think a lot of it is the trickle-down effect of what I'm going through and what they see me deal with every day. They see Dad and Mom locked arm in arm, dealing with the really tough stuff, praying in the living room, you know, over tears and praising God, screaming out because we're so pumped about what's going on, the highs and the lows, and they see that. And so from another perspective, then I go into my wife. My wife has just absolutely amazed me, especially in the last 2 months, because it's been the unique times as we're about to open. She's like, I'm not going on speaking engagements. I'm going to hold off on some ministry opportunities because I believe that my part of my ministry is to you, Joel, and loving me well through this time and just sitting there listening. We just sat up last night for about 2 hours, letting me just vent and being there for me. But she's amazed me in that she could easily do, because she homeschools the kids. She leads a homeschooling group. The foundation's a big part of her life. A lot of ministry opportunities with discipleship with some young people that we work with. She could easily turn to that and just leave me on an island. But she's been 100% my corner. It was such a help.
Yeah, well, you're blessed there, brother. Amen. So, and it's interesting too. Again, I've heard a similar story from others in other countries, not even Bammers. I mean, just traditional missionaries or expats in general that, you know, and some wives really struggle and some thrive. And so obviously your wife is really thriving. So I'm thankful for that. And you can see that it makes a difference for you and the family pulling together. I mean, it's hard on them, but they're getting stronger as we're meant to be through hardship. So that's exciting to hear and encouraging.
I mean, I told you, they found their life here 6 years now. So I tell Stephen missionary people that have kids, anybody who's going, right? Doesn't matter. I say people because it could be missionaries, it could be Bammers. When you come to the country, it's going to take some adjustment time. It took us, this is not everybody's story, but it took my oldest 4.5 years, 5 years. Now we're here 6. And, you know, we have friends over to the house now every week. I have to tell them no for social events because it's too much. Yeah. 3 years ago, it was not the case. 2 years ago, it was not the case for our oldest. So that's the high five moment, right? Praise God stuff. So I say that to say it for those people who are listening, it is possible and it will happen. But you remember, how do you learn a language? It's like eating an elephant one piece at a time. It's the same thing for the social aspect.
So I'm thinking about your younger daughter, the 12-year-old. You've been there 6 years. She's lived half of her life in Colombia.
Yeah.
And that in the first half that she didn't live in Colombia, you know, half of that she was a baby. Probably, I mean, she has memories, and so it's not like this is not meaningful. But you know, over half of her maturing, you know, emotional life, she's been there. Yeah. So it's no wonder she thinks of it as home. So and this is just a simple question, but it won't be easy to answer. But Joel, what have you done as the dad, or what have you and your wife done that have you feel like obviously the grace of God prayer. I mean, I get that, and I don't want to. We're not taking away from that at all. But if you had to speak to a parent in a similar boat, they're either new in country doing BAM, or they're going to a country to do BAM, or traditional initiatives for that matter. I mean, you've done something right, and I know you're not taking credit, but what have you done right, and what would you advise others in this moment?
It's real simple. I've had this conversation a couple of times lately. You've got to be in the culture. You've got to be a part of everything going on. And if that means don't speak English in the house when Latino, or again, wherever you cultural context you're in, for our example was, we're never going to speak English. If there is someone who does not speak English in our house or around us, there is no English. We're going to go out and we're going to get involved in anything we can possibly get involved in.
Yep.
We're going to go out and eat. We're going to go hang out at the park. There is no American bubble for us. To the point of where, like, volleyball is a great example. Our coaches now over the years have evolved. But when we first started, the coaching staff was not what we would traditionally be okay with. As coming out, I was a college coach. Angel, my wife, was a college coach. We had much higher expectations for our coaching staff. You know, we had that American lens. We had to sit there and let the culture handle it, whether we liked it or not. We had to be quiet, allow our kids to fail and get yelled at and things go wrong. And because then we were saying that the culture was just as important as everything that we were doing. And that immediately, and we still do it to this day. We have a lady that comes over and helps us clean the house, cooks for us a good bit during the week because we're all so busy. And that person is 100% part of our family now. And there's never a moment that we would treat her any differently. And our kids learn from that to a point now where when Americans come down and hang out with us and do things that we would be a little uncomfortable with, but, if we were Americanized, we would be okay with, they'll call to the carpet. They'll be like, hey, they'll pull an adult to the side and be like, hey, we're uncomfortable with that. Could you maybe not? And this is how we do it. So we've just forced culture. We've forced locality. We've been passionate about being in the context that we're in, Mike, and it's worked for us.
Yeah.
And not only that, but there will never be a time we talk ill of the people that we're around. We don't serve them. We work alongside them. And that has changed dramatically. Every context.
Isn't it interesting? As you're talking, I love because I've traveled a lot of different countries and a lot of different mission contexts over the years. And I've seen some business as mission folks and traditional mission folks who, are very adamant that they have these boundaries. And this is our American zone or our English zone or our Australian zone. And then everything else we'll do our best, in the Colombian zone. And there's this artificial divide. And it's not that you give up your home culture. It's not that you devalue it, but that those barriers, and I've seen it. I mean, I've seen it in China. I've seen it in South America. I've seen it in former Soviet unions. It's just like, home is America. And it's like, well, I understand that. I can't be critical. But as I'm listening to you talk, I think, all right, so Jesus, when he became human, he didn't say, but I'm going to have my divine moments. I'm going to step up. I'm going to stop being the God man and just go back to being God, the Word. And he's like, no, I'm joined forever to this humanity thing. And even now, sitting on the throne, right? He is both God and man. That never stopped. And I never heard him say, you stupid humans. I did hear him say a couple of times to his disciples, hey, I've been with you guys a while. You still don't get this? I mean, there are those moments, but it was never you stupid human. And I think the ugly American is still a reality. And you guys have done a beautiful job of saying this is home. And at least for today, this is our culture. This is not, we're not invading this culture. We're living in this culture. And I love that. That's got to have been both really hard on some levels, but really liberating on other levels.
It's the most freeing thing I've done. And I always say the reality is if you could put yourself secondary, right? I don't believe that I'm going to be a better church planner or creating church models or BAMmer than anybody else. And the moment you go down that road, it is 100% freeing because inevitably you elevate whoever you're with, right? It becomes this situation where we're on an even plane. And it models that to our kids. It models that to my wife. It models that to our coworkers in other cities, because it's a humbling, not on purpose. I'm not going, oh man, look how humble I am. It inevitably becomes a humbling moment, because then I look at everybody that I'm working with, the 5 or 6 pastors that I interact with on a day-to-day basis, and I go, no, you're going to speak at this situation. I'm not going to speak at this conference.
Yeah.
Because you're better at this than I am. Now, I've got some great tools that I can bring to the table, but at the end of the day, God's given me those things that I want to empower you with, so God can empower you to impact thousands of people versus 15, right? The number doesn't matter, but the reality is when we can impact cities or whole communities, that's a really cool thing, Mike. And it is. It's a humbling thing, and I get humbled every day. So I love to be humbled on my own terms.
Yeah, exactly. I hear you. All right. So as we start winding down, and this will obviously be the second in many conversations. Mm-hmm. And as I mentioned, I'm certainly hoping we can connect when I'm in Colombia this summer. God willing, we will in person. You've been to my house. I haven't been to your house. So we got to change that.
Make that happen.
But so you're about to open. You're like a month away or so, and we know that could stretch, or things happen. But it will be totally positive. So tell us what you anticipate over the next 30, 60, 90 days, and weave into that how our listeners can pray for you and your family and your business, because we know, to state the patently obvious, none of this happens without God's action.
You're right. At this point, nothing's happening without him. So the next 30 days are easy. It's great. We'll have open doors. Our delay. So we actually had a delay. We should be open on the 20th of April, but we're going to have a delay. Probably it'll be beginning of March. So literally the first week in March, or May, apologize. But what it looks like is we're selling like crazy. We're in pre-sales mode. We have 65 private offices to fill and about 85 co-working spaces to fill. We got to furnish the thing, which is turning into actually the most fun thing I've done in this process. Because here they build furniture. They don't do anything else. You don't buy it prefabricated. You call a factory and say, here's what I want and the dimensions I want it. So it's actually really fun. But in that process, Mike, we'll be done, ready to go. We have staff in place. We're already built out for that. We've already started pre-selling. We've had 5 or 6 pre-sold offices. So that's huge news. That's awesome. We'd love to be higher than that, but there's a chance that we might sell a lot of the space just to 1 or 2 commercial clients, big universities, BPOs that are really popular here, those kind of things. So if that happens, praise God, we're super excited. But what does the next really 60 to 90 days look like? Trying to ramp up what we're doing from a church planting perspective and a community outreach perspective. So we're going to initiate everything with really launching. We're going to have one church plant in place that'll meet on Sundays, but we're really trying to launch the Church Planter Accelerator, where we have 6 to 8 guys learning, month to month, week to week, really with me on how to plant churches, how to do that well. And they're launching their churches simultaneously as we teach, right? So that's the exciting part. So once that we get the roots growing and we're a little bit more established because we're so new, then the goal is get profitability. The way it's looking right now, and in terms of positivity, we've had a ton of interest. If we can get there, we were supposed to get there in 10 months. It's looking forecast-wise, we'll be there in less than 6.
Wow.
If that happens, frankly, break even. Our investor in the U.S. and abroad have said, if you guys can get there that quick, we want you to start looking at the space number 2. So that's the exciting part. But the way people can be praying for us is, my hope and dream for this thing is that it impacts cities. And frankly, it impacts, I can live with the stress. I can live with the anxieties of the day-to-day. That's what I do for a living. That's what I signed up for, right? That's the way God made. So if they could be praying for this impact, the spiritual impact that this thing will have, that would be huge for me. I think the other side of it is that God can just continue to raise up capital. We're 100% fundraised, but I had to go out and raise some more money on a nonprofit basis because of the church piece, right? We can't support the church because we're going to be a little bit tight on the margins to be able to buy the church equipment and to be able to do some of the curriculum that we wanted to do. Uh-huh. So we're going to go out and raise another 70, 80, 90,000 bucks just to make that doable, paying the church planters a small stipend so they can survive during this year. A lot of those kind of nitpicky detail things. If they could be praying for those funds to come in, that'd be great. I'm working on that. It's been fun. We've already gotten $25,000 raised. So that's exciting. But, it's a process. So they could be praying for those two things. Praying for me individually would be awesome. And just my heart. And that I love all my family well through this process. And there are days where I don't do that. And I'm honest about that. And that's a flaw for me. And I've got to be better at that. So if they could be praying for those three things, I would be uber appreciative.
No, well, we'll definitely, and this will go out fairly soon, so people can start praying for you now. So let me ask you specifically on the nonprofit fundraising side, because you are doing a hybrid operation. You're not pure business as mission. You're not pure traditional missionary. You really are living in both worlds at the same time. Not one day here, one day there. You're doing them together. And I think there's a lot to be learned from the way you're doing it, and to be interesting to see over time, the lessons you learn and make this instructive for others. But how can people just, if they wanted to donate, we'll talk about investments as well, but if they want to just donate to the nonprofit side of what you're doing, the church planting, which is, that money's not going to you. Let's be real clear. That money's not going to you. That money is going to the church planter,
the project
you work with. And so how do they do that? Where does it go? Who do they send it to?
Yeah, so you can go to our website, www.12degreesnorth.org. And on the top of, the masthead or the banner at the top, it says donate or support the Ballews. I literally just did a video on this literally yesterday. And it was, I'll look it up right now. I support the Ballews, I believe. Okay. And they can click on that. It takes them directly to the website of our mission. And it's donate. I just looked. So if they click on that donate, it literally goes to Barranquilla Church Planting. They click the button to donate. It goes right to where they need to go. It's that easy. And literally, it's all that money is nonprofit money. It's not fundraising for the company that's equity or debt equity or anything like that. No, it's completely separated.
And so it is
a project fund.
12 degrees north, the number 12?
12degreesnorth.org.
degreesnorth.org. Okay.
And then go to the donate, and you're there. And it takes you right there. So it's a couple-step process. There's a QR code on there if you want to go quicker.
While we're at it, give me the website for the co-working space as well. This will all be the show notes, but I want to make sure I've got the correct information.
Yeah, it's thecolabor.com. So co-labor for you. I'm sorry, I have an accent with that. I say it in Spanish so much.
Help me out here. Co-labor? Co-laborer.
Yeah. No, co-labor. COLABOR.com.
Okay. That's what I thought. And again, it's in my notes somewhere, but it's easier for me if you give it to me again now. So good. All right. So, Joel, last word from you to the audience, encouragement, wisdom. What would you leave us with?
No, I think for me right now, the best thing I can say to people is get yourself to a place that you're uncomfortable. Why? Because of what I said earlier in the conversation. Because uncomfort leads to dependency. And if we, as Americans, I get it. It's harder to be uncomfortable than it is where I am today. I get that. But I'm constantly telling people, advising people, loving people to get uncomfortable. Whatever it is, whether it's go out and join a small group that you never have been a part of in your church, whether it's go out and minister or love on people in a nonprofit for whatever, the homeless, it doesn't matter. Get yourself uncomfortable, because that uncomfort reveals a lot about you, and it immediately leads you back, if you have that personal relationship with Jesus Christ, leads you back to the cross, and inevitably creates that one-on-one relationship more and more and more, which, as everybody, we're sin-natured, we get away from a lot. So, I ought to leave that today. And again, it's not BAMers, it's not missionaries, it's not the Christian in a local church, it's everybody. Somebody needs to hear that, and that's been on my heart a lot lately, for sure.
So I can see a bumper sticker now. Go get uncomfortable.
I literally thought about doing something with uncomfortable. Yeah, for a t-shirt, because I'm like, it's my mantra now. It's because I'm uncomfortable every day.
You know what? If you walk with the Lord, as my old mentor used to say, you walk forward into battle. And so you are. He's going to lead you victoriously, but not comfortably. And
100%.
That's a great way of saying 100%. It. So this is fun. Joel Ballew, co-labor in Barranquilla. He says it much better than I do. Barranquilla, Colombia. Check it out online. Exciting. Great heart for you guys. It's always encouraging to hear from you, to see you smile. I'd love to. I haven't met your family yet, so someday I'll get to do that.
Yeah, we do that.
But blessings, brother. So good to see you.
I appreciate
Hear what's
it.
going on. We will be praying for you.
You're a good man, Mike. Appreciate it.
Yeah, well, you too, brother. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Business as Mission podcast. We invite you to become part of the story by supporting the BAM podcast at patreon.com/BAM Stories. There's a link in the notes with this episode. For more information, go to thirdpathinitiative.com or tryventure.com. Please share this podcast and give us a review wherever you listen.